Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And one of the most difficult decisions a player makes in World of Warcraft is which specialization or which class are they going to main upon release. And Midnight is taking some serious risks and making massive reworks to a lot of specializations. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a deep dive of the Unholy Deathknight, looking at the changes and adjustments and if they've been able to achieve their mission in terms of simplification of this specialization, as well as addressing some of the pain points or possible annoyances that the specialization had previously. And as always, if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So I've spent an extensive amount of time on Unholy Deathknight. Yesterday I did dungeon testing. I've done some 1v1 dueling testing because now we are actually level 90, and I got to play it through, and it feels surprisingly really good. I had a really good initial response to it with the changes that have gone through, but I think it's important that we highlight some of the specifics here so you really understand what's going on with your gameplay and what to anticipate for it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the introduction of an ability called Putrefy, which is a 30-second cooldown, and it will command a lesser ghoul to strike the target and explode. It's very similar to Implosion, but it has a lot of synergies because now you're basically able to resurrect ghouls from the ground throughout your regular damage rotation, and then you can use Putrefy to throw them at targets to explode. And then you have other talents that when a ghoul explodes, it empowers the other elements of your army with Unholy Aura, which was really cool synergies. And you can also reanimate these monsters when they die, so they can be reanimated basically as Maguses of the Dead, so you can continue to just shoot in with skeleton mages and ghouls and gobbies, and it's a really fun, flavorful play on basically a necromancer, and so I had a really good time with that. The Apex talents do focus quite heavily around playing with minions, given that Forbidden Knowledge focuses around Army of the Dead, grants you a significant amount of runic power, and causes your next 2 Scourge Strikes to summon lesser ghouls. So it feels like you get this really big cooldown burst during Army of the Dead, which feels really good. I had a good time with that. And then when you putrefy the ghoul, you can kind of extend the duration of this effect, and it's a really interesting synergy. The other thing is that wounds are gone, right? So stacking wounds on a target and then having to spend them. If that target dies before you could use all the wounds, you were just like, eh. Or if you had to switch targets because there's a different priority, you're like, eh, and you missed out on a lot of extra damage. I didn't notice that. That pain point seems to be basically fully addressed. You can just freely switch around. You don't need to be having too much brain power on how many stacks I build up on that target. Should I switch now ahead of time type of deal. Another thing is that Death and Decay seems to have a lot less importance on the overall rotation, at least from what I experienced. You can kind of just spam your buttons through and do a significant amount of AoE damage regardless. The current build that I have here was because I was trying some like single target execute phases, because Soul Reaper is a little bit different now as well, whereas you can apply this on a target below 35% health and it gives you that big damage spike. And then there's other talents that when you use Putrefy, you have a chance to reset Soul Reaper and you can use it like a sudden death execute like a warrior. So that's why I thought the synergies here. And then I wanted Gargoyle for the extra single target. I feel like this is something that's probably only going to be useful in raiding on bosses. It's unlikely to be as strong in Mythic Plus, especially lower keys where bosses and mobs just kind of roll over really quickly. So you're probably not going to play this until like super end game, but I really wanted to test out like different customizations. I think Abomination is just generally just better now though, because it just has a disease cloud that increases the damage from all of your minions, and obviously there's a lot of minions whether you're putrefying them and summoning them. So I would opt probably out of these choices just because the Magus of the Dead AoE Shadow Bolts in dungeons, I tried that last night. Really fun. I liked the Putrefy explosion, summon a ghoul into a Magus that just starts pew-pewing everybody. Basically, it was a lot of fun with that talent. And then this is the reanimation. So if you're running like the ghoul build where you're able to like summon in multiple mages and just blast out AoE damage, and then the Abomination is just buffing them all up, that felt the coolest out of all the builds that I tried. This was like the most fun one. And I was trying to theory craft a little bit for single target, and then I also got into some dueling, and I was fighting against a warrior, so I kind of built this kit on the left to be as tanky against physical damage, which is probably why you're looking at this and you're like, he doesn't have anti-magic zone, like what is he doing? And also anti-magic zone is just a lot more prevalent, and given the fact that they are taking a lot of defensive cooldowns away from a lot of classes, I think like team-wide utility damage reduction cooldowns like anti-magic zone are likely going to get even more value for the next expansion. So you may have a spot, you know, in raid or a spot in dungeons, not just because you do the highest AoE DPS, which is typically, you know, the main reason that you'll get taken in that area of content. You actually have some utility that might be very important to survive certain mechanics. So I think that's a really good thing overall. So basic premise of this is that I actually ended up liking it. I had very big concerns for it because it was like, oh, what is Putrefy going to be like? How is it going to explode? You know, it was like, but they actually listened to the feedback, and they made the ghouls basically like charge at the target like Cybermen in Dragon Ball Z, and then blow up. So it's not as annoying as I had thought that it possibly could end up being. So when we attack the training dummy, same goal is to get dots up. Use Festering Strike and Scourge Strike, and we'll be able to summon in these little ghouls and goblies. You see these lesser ghouls are coming in off to the side as I'm pressing my Scourge Strike, and they get like a nice little necromancer animation, and you can just see them popping out of the ground. I haven't even used Army of the Dead yet, and I already have like, I don't even know how many of these little ghouls just ready to go. So if we pop Army of the Dead now, we get even more pets summoned in here. We get the Abomination, the 4 Horsemen, and then we can start putrefying. And when we putrefy, they're going to die and reanimate. You can see them reanimating as these ghouls in the back. And look at this. I just have a giant army of Magus of the Dead. So you really feel the Necromancer fantasy. Like, it's very, very strong with this current build and duration. And obviously you saw my spells on my action bar also transform. We have Festering Scythe, which gives you a little bit of extra AoE off of your Festering Strike. So my anticipation is that you're going to feel very powerful in Mythic Plus situations. You'll probably feel pretty awesome even in PvP, just due to the burst damage of Putrefy. And they've changed some of your PvP talents as well, which we'll look at after this. But just general rotation feels really easy now. I just go between spamming Festering and spamming Scourge Strike, depending on what's empowered, summoning little ghouls in with the Scourge Strike spam. So rather than getting like a wound stack on the target, it summons in a lesser ghoul. I feel like it feels really good. It feels really good. It's a little spammy on the screen, obviously, and I think they're probably going to have some settings for like other players in the raid or other players in PvP to be able to like hide your pets and stuff. But I really like the Necro Lord kind of fantasy vibe on it that it's got going with the new animations. And when Army of the Dead comes up here again, we'll be able to see that animation again. But I really like the reanimation, just constantly summoning in minions. It's a little bit more like Diablo, honestly. With just how many minions you're capable of summoning in. Looks like I got a little bit of lag here, but we'll stack up a bunch of strikes here so we can summon in a lot of ghouls. So we got a lot of ghouls coming in here in a second, and then we're going to pop our empowered pet, Army of the Dead again, and we're just going to go to town. Like, we're just going to do a monstrous amount of damage with our empowered death coils that AoE to multiple targets now. With the Army of the Dead transformation, it also amplifies Epidemic to give us big AoE. And when we putrefy the ghouls, they get summoned into Maguses of the Dead, and you just basically have a giant army going at your target. And it feels a lot less brain demanding than the previous one, because you don't really have to care again about what was on the target, right? You don't have to be tracking wounds on the target. You're just worried about building up stacks to get ghouls out and just hitting buttons as they proc. In order to give yourself like the biggest damage output. So I think they've done a good job of retaining DK, but also making it a bit easier to understand as far as simplicity and basically all content. And I think this is still going to feel good in PvP as well, of which I did do some testing. I'll probably put some YouTube shorts up of that if you're interested in seeing how Unholy DK was looking, although it seems like Warrior is just really really OP right now. But again, we're at max level, but we only have like 197 item level. We're not wearing the right, you know, itemization. This is just what's currently available on the alpha. But Unholy DK felt really fleshed out. The only criticisms I've seen so far, at least publicly, and I didn't try this talent out, but I've seen criticisms about it, is Pestilence. And this is when Scourge Strike damages an enemy affected by your plagues. It has a chance to upgrade to Pestilence, which then will consume all of the plagues around you to deal 50% of the remaining damage instantly, and you'll gain a charge of Putrefy. So this is a mechanic that they're also giving to Fire Mage, and I don't know as like dot classes how much you guys like this, where you like consume the dots on the target and then the issue of maybe reapplying it. I don't know if like this accidentally procs after you've consumed it, and then you're not able to get rid of it. But I have seen like some DKs being pretty critical of Pestilence so far. I basically just avoided it because everything else was just so much cooler and better. I just completely avoided it. But that has been one point of criticism. The Necrotic Wounds PvP talent, like switching gears to more PvP focus, this one's really good now because it gives you an extra charge of Putrefy as well as all the healing absorption effects. So Putrefy is like your biggest hitting ability, right? This is like Templar's Verdict for Ret Paladin or Star Surge for Boomkin. Like it's a big window, so it's really nice. Unfortunately though, Necromancer's Bargain I think is pretty much dead in the water. Now instead of, you know, being like that big explosion of wounds on the target, it's Festering Strike no longer summons a lesser ghoul, which you literally can't play the core of the class if it doesn't do that, so it just already seems dead. To deal a very small amount of shadow damage that heals you for a very small amount. I feel like this talent's like completely gone. I would honestly rather, like, I would love to have a PvP talent that like has something related to a lich, you know, like when you putrefy a ghoul, it has a chance to reanimate into a lich, and that's something like Kel'Thuzad, right? And maybe it's a Magus of the Dead that shoots like snares or something, you know. You could go through a bunch of different ideas, some type of like summoner focused thing, because it says Necromancer. I guess the bargain is that, again, I don't know why it has to do with Festering Strike. It just, fantasy wise, flavor wise, gameplay wise, it just makes no sense to me, and I think it's just not even going to be played. It is kind of my anticipation for Necromancer's Bargain. So if you like that big burst cooldown, it's kind of gone, although maybe you don't really need it anymore. But I really feel like they could do something more with this than they have. Again, like this other one's really fun. An extra charge of Putrefy that is glorious. That is very glorious, and a lot of fun. But basic general premises of this is that I don't think you should be worried. That's what I've seen a lot of DKs were concerned about, is like, oh my god, Putrefy the ghoul is going to get kited at AoEs and all this stuff. It's going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be bad. The gameplay felt really fun no matter what content I was in. Much more straightforward. Only criticism I would give is that the talent trees are very overbearing. Because I don't main an Unholy DK, so I was just going through every one of these one by one, and it took like very long to go through it, and I didn't even know if originally I had selected everything that may be the best or the most optimal. I really think that there's another way to go about these talent trees and retain the the concept of you level up, you get to put a point in, and also like the choice of customization. I'd really like just one tree that's like the hero talents, where you fill it up as you level, you make choices while you level, but when you get max, you get all of them, and then take the talents that are actually choices against each other. And then make a separate like Miss Pandaria style talent tree where you're making those decisions. So that way you keep the core classic WoW tree where you level up and you put points in, and you get an easier way to process the decision making, because it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. Like between both the trees, you know, we have like over 100 something talents. So if you've never played it before, it can be really overbearing. If I had been able to just copy somebody, I definitely would have probably done that, because it was quite a lot. That was just like my own personal feedback. We're talking about simplification, bringing new players, returning players. I do think with how fast also they shove you to max level, that you just get a whole bunch of these talent points all at once, and you're just like, what's going on? It's quite a lot to process. But overall gameplay feels really good. I like the loop. I think they've dealt with a lot of the pain points. I think just particularly the Pestilence seems to be not being received very well at the moment. And Necromancer's Bargain is, it may as well just delete the talent instead of doing this, instead of doing that to it. But other than that, really good time. Definitely one of the better specializations, given the fact that we're still in alpha, right? So a lot of this is subject to change. It probably will change. So if you want to make sure you're staying up to date with those changes as they're happening, I'm doing my best to relay those to you in real time, so you're never missing out, never falling behind, never feeling like you're walking into the dark and making a bad turn into a dead end. But other than that, thank you guys very much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and I will see you in the next one.